Welcome to Organic Chemistry Basics to Advanced series, and you are watching Chemistry Lover. So this is the 10th part of this series, and here we are going to start the Organic Chemistry Mechanism series. So in this video I will talk about nucleophilic substitution reaction, and this topic I will cover in 2 to 3 parts. So this is the first part and all these parts are very important. So before watching this I will suggest you to watch the previous parts, that is 9 parts are available on this series and they all are extremely important. So if you want to learn organic chemistry from very basics and if you want to make your core in the subject strong, then I will strongly suggest you to watch this full series because they are very important. I put a lot of effort to make these videos, so watch these videos and let me know in the comment section that how you are feeling it. So now let us start our today's topic. So today's topic is nucleophilic substitution reaction, which is in short it is represented at SN, and this is the most well studied organic chemistry reaction whatever there. So scientist Ingold, so we can say him the father of organic chemistry mechanism. So all the organic chemistry mechanism started from him, and he did monumental work in this particular field, the nucleophilic substitution reaction, and by this virtue we get a lot of information about this topic. So this is a very this topic is mechanistically very sound. So if I start this topic, so to represent the nucleophilic substitution reaction in general, we use a very common equation, a very general equation, that is the conversion of an alkyl halide to alcohol with the help of generally aqueous or ethanolic hydroxide. So I just represent OH minus. So this is the general representation of nucleophilic substitution reaction. You can see this X halogen is substituted by this OH group, that's why it is a substitution reaction. Now if you look into the rate of this equation, two extreme cases are found. In one case the rate of the reaction is proportional to the concentration of the substrate, that is alkyl halide, as well as the concentration of base or the nucleophile, and in another extreme case the rate is proportional to the concentration of substrate only, that is Rx. In this case this OH minus or any nucleophile present, that is irrelevant. So these are the two extreme cases found. Now we will study a lot of substrates and we will see how this how we can classify them in these two categories. So first, to begin with, we take the molecule methyl bromide, this example, and if you react it with sodium hydroxide you will get methanol. So in this case you will see the rate of the reaction is actually proportional to the concentration of MEX. At the same time it is proportional to the concentration of OH minus. That is, in this case this particular equation is followed, that is both the rate is dependent both on the concentration of alkyl halide and the concentration of nucleophile. Now that means nucleophile has a role in this reaction, and Ingold proposed the following mechanism for this reaction. So let me draw the structure of methyl bromide in detail. So we know the stereochemistry. If you don't know about the stereochemistry of organic compound, you watch my initial videos. I detailed the stereochemistry thing. I explained the stereochemistry thing in detail, so you must watch that videos. Okay, so here we have this group, these 3 hydrogens are there like this. So this is the if you say this is the flying wedge projection formula of any molecule in organic chemistry. Now your base or nucleophile here, actually it is a nucleophile here, is this, and it will attack from the back side of the molecule. So this is the proposal from Ingold, and he said that it will go through a transition state. In the transition state what will happen? So there will be a bond breaking in this CBr bond, and there will be a bond formation in this OC bond, and other groups become planar. So you can see this segment now become planar. All these 3 hydrogens, they now become planar, they are in one plane, and this is TBP structure. This is called the transition state of the reaction, and after that the bromine will leave and you will get this OH. Here you will have one hydrogen, here you will have one hydrogen and another hydrogen will be here. So this is the mechanism which is proposed by Ingold, and it is quite good mechanism, right? So in this mechanism we can see this OH attacks and simultaneously this CBr bond breaks. So whatever energy is needed to break this bond, this CBr bond, whatever energy is needed, that is simultaneously compensated by the bond formation, this OH to carbon, this CO bond formation. So by this CO bond formation we will gain energy, by this bond formation we will gain energy, and the same energy is actually utilized to break this CBr bond. So both are happening simultaneously. This is the main concept of this substitution reaction, and that's why this OH has a role in this equation or in this reaction, and it is included in the rate equation. So OH has the following role. Now we can see the role of OH minus in this particular reaction. So in this case, initially this carbon atom is actually sp3 hybridized, and when it goes to the transition state, this is the transition state, and here the carbon atom becomes sp2 hybrid. Okay, so the carbon atom is sp2 hybrid, and all these hydrogens, they are bonded to this sp2 hybrid, and the p orbital whatever is there, that is bonded with this OH and this bromine. So in molecular orbital terms of view, if we look into the equation, how it will look like. So you can see this is let me erase it. So I have to draw the orbitals which are involved in the reaction, the HOMO-LUMO. So for that, first let me draw the molecule. So this is the molecule. Now here you will have, so in this case this alkyl halide is your electrophile, so it will have the LUMO, low energy LUMO. What is the low energy LUMO here? So the low energy LUMO here is this one. You can see this is the low energy LUMO, this is bromine, this is the sigma star of CBr bond, this is the sigma star of the CBr bond, this is the low energy LUMO of the molecule. And now you have this OH minus which has lone pair in the non-bonding orbital, this is in the non-bonding orbital. So these two now can overlap, you can see these two now can overlap, right? And this is, so this is our HOMO, this is the HOMO, the non-bonding orbital of OH minus is the HOMO, and the sigma star orbital of CBr bond is the LUMO. So this is the HOMO-LUMO interaction of this following reaction. Now how the transition state will look like? So the transition state will look like this. So you have p orbital, so one lobe of the p orbital will be bonded with the bromine and another lobe with the OH minus. So this is how the transition state of the reaction look like. Okay, so let me shade it like this. This is shaded part, this is unshaded part, this looks the symmetry, and this is the transition state of the reaction. So this is how the reaction goes. Now in this reaction we have to designate the name for it. Okay, so the general term is SN, but we have to designate the name. How the designation is done? So designation is done based on the molecularity of the reaction. Now this is a single step reaction, and if you look into the energy profile diagram, so this is how the energy profile diagram look like. So here you have the Rx and the OH minus nucleophile. Now it goes through a transition state. So this is a transition state. Here you have this R, you have this OH, and you have this X. Both are weakly bonded to R. This is the transition state, and after going through the transition state, it leads to the product which is the ROH. So this is a single step reaction. Single step reaction, and in any single step reaction, whatever molecules are involved in that particular step, that is the molecularity of that reaction. Now in this case you can see this Rx and this OH minus, these two are involved in the rate of the equation, and that's why its molecularity will be 2. So the reaction is termed as SN2 reaction. These two terms refers for the molecularity of the reaction, and this SN stands for nucleophilic substitution. So that's why this reaction is called nucleophilic substitution reaction and bimolecular, right? So this is the bimolecular nucleophilic substitution reaction. So we have seen that methyl bromide, when reacted with OH minus, it follows the SN2 pathway, the bimolecular nucleophilic substitution pathway. Now let us take another extreme example, and which is the tertiary butyl iodide. And the same molecule, if it is treated with same condition, that is OH minus in water, let's say, we will get tertiary butanol. But in this case, the rate of the reaction only is dependent on the concentration of this tertiary butyl iodide, the Ri. The OH is not involved in the rate of the reaction. So that means whatever the mechanism of the reaction may be, that does not need the presence of this OH minus, right? So in this case, the reaction is proposed in the following way, that at first the cleavage of this Ci bond occurs, and you will get this carbocation, and I minus will be here. And now on this carbocation, so this carbocation is formed, and on this carbocation your water or OH minus, anything can attack. In this case, attack of water is more probable, because water is the solvent, so solvent molecule is more there, so it has more chance to attack. So water can attack over this, and you will get this alcohol, right? Now few questions are there. First of all, this reaction includes two steps. Red one indicate one step, and the white indicates another step. So two steps are there in this particular reaction. Now whenever you have a reaction which composed of two steps, there will be one step which is slower than another, or if you have multiple steps, among all the steps one step will be there which is the slowest, and that is called the rate determining step, because the overall rate of the reaction will be dependent on that particular step. And in this case, this formation of this carbocation is the rate determining step, that is the white step is the rate determining step. So we call it RDS, or rate determining step. So as soon as the carbocation is formed, OH will immediately attack on the carbocation to get this alcohol. So this rate step is very fast, and this white step is the rate determining step of the reaction. Now previously we have seen that the bond formation of the CO bond, that is this one, if you remember, this CO bond formation and this CBr bond breaking was taken place simultaneously, and that's why the energy needed was compensated by the bond formation. But in this case, you can see at first the bond is broken to give you the carbocation, and then the bond formation occurs. So how we get the energy needed for this bond breaking? Now in this case, as soon as the bond is formed, we have this I minus and this carbocation, and both are strongly polarized, right? So that's why in water-like solvent, polar protic solvent, they are heavily solvated, strongly solvated, and this solvation energy is actually the driving force for this bond breaking to occur. So because of the stability of this tertiary carbocation, which gain the stability through solvation and through the hyperconjugation of these hydrogens, right? This hyperconjugation will also give the stability. So these two reasons, for the hyperconjugative stability and the solvation, these two energy provide the driving force for this Ci bond breaking, right? So that's why this bond is broken, and after the bond breaking, this OH will attack over here to give you this. Now again, in this case also, this carbon is sp3 hybridized, and after this Ci cleavage, whatever carbocation you will get in this carbocation, the carbon atom is sp2 hybridized. So how the carbocation will look like? So carbocation will look like this. Okay, so here you have one methyl group, here you have another methyl group, and here you have another methyl group. This is the carbocation, the vacant p orbital. Okay, and if you want to know more about carbocation, watch my previous videos. I discussed carbocation in detail. So this is the second class of reaction, and now in this case, if you find out the molecularity of the reaction, so we have to. So for a multi-step reaction, more than one step when it is involved. So in this case, first let me draw the energy profile diagram. So this is your, let's say this is your tertiary butyl iodide, and first it will go through a transition state to give you the carbocation. So this is the carbocation you will get, and then again you will have another transition state to give you the product tertiary butanol. So this is called intermediate. This carbocation, whatever is there, this is called intermediate. This is a true intermediate. Transition state is not a true species, it is imaginary species, but intermediate we can isolate, and it is a true species. So this reaction, as it goes through two steps, so it has two transition state, and energy of one will be higher than another. Now because the first step is the rate determining step, so this step will have more activation energy, so this EA1 will be greater than this EA2. So this is EA2, and in this drawing we can see that EA1 is actually greater than EA2. So the first step is the rate determining step, and in a multi-step reaction, whatever is the rate determining step, in that step how many molecules are involved, they are determining the molecularity of the reaction, and in this particular case you can see only the alkyl halide is involved in the rate determining step, so that's why the molecularity of the reaction is 1, and the reaction is called SN1 reaction. So this particular case is the SN1 reaction. We say that this tertiary butyl iodide, it follows the SN1 mechanism. So this is the classification of the reaction. The first one is the SN2 mechanism, when we have primary substrate, the methyl bromide, the primary alkyl halide, and when we have tertiary alkyl halide like tertiary butyl iodide, it goes through the SN1 mechanism. So this is the kinetics of these two reactions. Now let us see how different substrates respond to this SN1 or SN2 type reactions. Before that, we want to see the role of solvent in these two reactions. So now we will talk about the role of solvent. What is the role of solvent in these two type of reactions? Now SN1 reaction, if you look, so how SN1 reaction goes, first it will so I will just represent it in a general term as R. So Rx, first it will form the carbocation R plus and X minus, and if you look at the transition state of this reaction, it is like this. So this is the transition state where R will gain partial positive charge and X will gain partial negative charge. Initially there is very less polarization, but at the transition state there is a high polarization, and the intermediate is fully polarized with a positive cation. So that means as the reaction is progressing, so from here, let's say this is your Rx, this is your energy coordinate, and as the reaction is progressing like this to the intermediate, so this is intermediate R plus, so in the transition state there is a high polarization between this R and X group, there is a high polarization. So that means from the starting material, when you are going to the transition state, you have highly polarized species, right? And so that's why if you do the reaction in polar protic solvent like water or methanol or any other alcohol, these are called polar protic solvent because they are polar, at the same time they have hydrogen bonding protons, so that's why they are called polar protic solvent. So in polar protic solvent, these type of species are highly solvated, right, because they are highly polar in nature. So like likes like, so that means polar solvent will like polar species. So as you are going to the going from starting material to the transition state, you are generating polar species. So if you use solvents like water or methanol for SN1 reaction, they are very good. So SN1 reaction shows the high rate in this type of solvents, polar protic solvents, because both the intermediate carbocation will be stabilized in this solvent and the transition state will also be stabilized. So you will lower down the energy of both the intermediate and the transition state, and both will lead to the lowering of the activation energy. And if you can reduce the activation energy of a reaction, the reaction will be faster. So that's why in polar protic solvents like water and methanol, the rate of SN1 reaction is very fast. Now let us talk about the situation for a SN2 reaction. What will happen? In case of SN2 reaction, actually if you use polar protic solvent, the rate actually decreases. Why? Again, you have to look into the transition state. So in case of SN2 reaction, what happens? We have Rx and we have some nucleophile which is negatively charged. So in the transition state, that nucleophile bind to the R and X leaves. So you have now partial negative charge over here, partial negative charge over here, and partial positive charge over here. Actually no positive charge, both are actually having partial negative charge. So these full negative charge, here you have the full negative charge which is distributed throughout the molecule as a partial negative charge. So as you go from the starting material to the transition state of the reaction, you actually spread out the negative charge. So that means the starting material in this case is more polar and the transition state is less polar. So that's why if you use polar protic solvent, it will stabilize your starting material more, so it will lower down the energy of the starting material, and that means if it was your initial activation energy, now activation energy will be like this. So in this case, if you use very polar solvent, polar protic solvent, you will actually increase the activation energy of the reaction, and the reaction will be slightly reaction rate will be slightly slower, right? So you cannot use a very polar solvent or very polar protic solvent for SN2 reaction, and we know the reason, because the transition state is less polar. But at the same time, if you use polar aprotic solvent like DMSO or DMF, so what is the structure of DMSO? DMSO has the structure like this, dimethyl sulfoxide. This is a very good solvent. And also DMF, N dimethyl formamide. These molecules are very polar. You can see this has very high dipole moment. They are very much polar, but they are not protic solvent. They doesn't have hydrogen bonding ability, and that's why these are very good choice for SN2 reaction. They stabilize this kind of transition states, and that's why lower down the rate of the lower down the activation energy of the reaction, and thus increase the rate of the reaction. So these two solvents, DMSO and DMF, are very good solvent for a nucleophilic substitution reaction. And indeed there may be some reaction which shows SN1 type of reaction in solvent like water, but if you shift the solvent from water to DMSO, they will change the mechanism from SN1 to SN2. This happens in lot of examples, right? So solvent has a very profound effect on the mechanism of the substitution reaction, whether it will undergo SN2 reaction or SN1 reaction. So what we conclude is polar protic like water or alcohol, they do SN1 reaction, and polar aprotic, they like DMF and also DMSO, they do SN2 reaction. So this is our conclusion of the solvent effect. Another thing I forgot to mention in the previous section, that how we generally say when a reaction is SN1 or SN2. So besides looking into the actual rate of the reaction, we can do a thing that we can qualitatively measure whether the reaction is SN1 or SN2 just by adding some external nucleophile, and in this case the nucleophile added is N3-, which has the structure like this. So it has a rod-like structure and it is very much nucleophilic. Because of this rod-like structure, it is very much nucleophilic. So whenever we are starting a reaction, we can add this N3- externally, and if the rate increases, if the reaction rate increases, we will say it is SN2 reaction, because in the rate equation of SN2 the role of nucleophile is involved. But if the rate of the equation remains same, then we will say it is SN1 reaction, because then we will say that this N3- has no effect on the rate of the reaction. So by adding external nucleophile, we can say whether a particular reaction is SN1 or SN2. Now we discussed the solvent effect. So it is the time to discuss about the structure, the effect of structure of substrate. So what is the effect of structure of substrate on the rate of SN2 or SN1 reaction? So we will first take 4 substrates. First one is methyl bromide, let's say. The second one is ethyl bromide. The third one is isopropyl bromide, and the fourth one is tertiary butyl bromide. So these 4 examples we will take, and we will see how they respond in SN1 and SN2 reaction. Now both this one, the first one, the methyl bromide, and the tertiary butyl bromide, this one we already have seen that this tertiary substrate shows SN1 reaction and this shows SN2 reaction, and both are very fast. So if we put their rate in a graph, so this is, let's say, log of the rate, so log of rate, and this is the substrate. So this is methyl bromide, this is ethyl bromide, this is isopropyl bromide, and so isopropyl bromide means we will erase the, yeah, so this is isopropyl bromide, and this is the tert butyl bromide. Here we have this 1 2 3 4 points. Now if we look at the rate of the reaction, we will see that for SN2 reaction the rate will be like this. So this will show rate like this, and this will show the rate here. Yeah, so for methyl bromide the rate is higher compared to ethyl bromide. So this is the rate for SN, this is for SN2 reaction, and for SN1 reaction we will see that the rate will be like this. So SN1 reaction, this will show, this tertiary butyl bromide will show very high rate, whereas this one shows very small rate. So this is actually the slowest, this is actually the slowest reaction. So actually this particular substrate is very interesting, this isopropyl bromide. It shows both SN1 and SN2 depending on the reaction condition, that is what solvent you are using, what nucleophile you are using, depending on that it shows both reaction SN1 and SN2. But this methyl bromide, it only shows SN1 reaction, and also this one, this ethyl bromide, it only shows the SN2 reaction. These two only shows SN2 reaction, and this tertiary butyl substrate is only shows the SN1 reaction. They are very selective, but this one is not selective. It varies its reaction mode depending on the reaction condition. Now let us see why. So first let's talk about SN2 reaction. So if we just talk about SN2 reaction, we will see that going from methyl bromide to ethyl bromide to this one, this tertiary butyl bromide, isopropyl bromide, the rate actually decreases, and this one doesn't give SN2 reaction. So SN2, it will not give SN2 reaction. For this 3 you will see that decrease in rate. Now why the decrease in rate? So two factors play important role here. The first one is, as you go from methyl to ethyl to this isopropyl group, you can see you are increasing the alkyl group, right? So this alkyl group exert the plus I effect, and this, due to this plus I effect, the electron deficiency of this particular center is reduced. Now nucleophile attacks over here. So nucleophile attacks over here, and nucleophile is a negatively charged species, so it attacks on the electrophilic center. Now as you are reducing the electrophilicity by pushing electron through alkyl group, its electrophilicity is reduced and it will be less reactive. Another profound effect is the steric effect. Steric effect is what? In case of this substrate methyl bromide, you will see you have only hydrogen atoms. You have only hydrogen atoms which does not show any steric hindrance, and nucleophile can easily attack over here. But as you change the groups, as you change one hydrogen by, let's say, methyl group, you introduce some kind of steric hindrance. As you put another methyl group, you introduce even more steric crowding, and when all three groups are replaced by alkyl group, you will introduce a tremendous amount of steric hindrance, and your nucleophile cannot approach to the back side, that is here, the LUMO of the CBr bond, and that's why the reaction cannot take place. So this is why as you go from here to here, the rate decreases. Now what is the effect of rate on rate of SN1 reaction? So in case of SN1 reaction, if you see, so this will show the highest rate, then this one, and these two, this one will show, this one and this one, they will not show. This one actually does not show SN1 reaction. This one will show very low rate of SN1 reaction. So actually practically we can say these two will only show the SN1 reaction, and as we go from this side to this side, the rate decreases. Now what is the explanation? So we know that in case of SN1 reaction, it is the stability of the cation, carbocation, which is formed in the rate determining step, that determines whether the reaction will be fast or slow. Now in the first case, we will get the, what we will get? We will get the tertiary carbocation, and it is stabilized both through this hyperconjugation and the inductive effect. whereas in the next case we have only two methyl groups, so the both hyperconjugation and inductive effect is relatively less, and in this case we have only one methyl group, so it is the worst situation, and for methyl we cannot even think about SN1 reaction. So as the stability of the carbocation decreases, so that's why the rate of the equation also decreases. At the same time, if you consider this one, in the starting material you have four large groups in the space, but when you go to the intermediate you have only three methyl groups, and they are far apart from one another. In this case the angle between them is 109 degree, but here the angle is 120 degree. So by going to the intermediate they are actually releasing the steric hindrance, steric crowding, and that facilitates the reaction. Similarly, one point I forgot to mention is that why this substrate is bad for SN2 reaction, because if you go to the transition state, if we just imagine that this will undergo SN2 reaction, so how the transition state will look like? So the transition state will look like something like this. Nucleophile, you have one methyl group, another methyl group here, so all these groups. So initially we had only four groups. At the transition state we have 5 groups around small carbon atom, and this is a very bad situation. This cannot exist. This is a very bad situation, and that's why it doesn't undergo the SN2 reaction. So this is the effect of substrate on the rate of SN2 and SN1 reaction. Now now we will see some other aspect, that is what are the other substrate and structural effect on the rate of SN1 and SN2 reactions. Okay, so for that we will take this example. Let's say now the thing is, in this case both steric and electronic effect plays role for determining the rate of the equation, but if we want to just look into the effect of steric hindrance, then we have to take this substrate. So let's say we take methyl bromide, then we take this one where we increase crowding here, that is ethyl bromide, then not ethyl bromide but this one, that is propyl bromide, and then we take substrate like this one. So we put two methyl groups at the beta position, and then we take another group, that is the neopentyl group, like this. So neopentyl group, we put 3 methyl groups at the beta position. So this is alpha, this is beta. So in this case we are increasing bulk at the beta position, so this will be very fast in a SN2 reaction. Okay, this will give a very fast SN2 reaction, and as we go from left to right we will see decrease, and this molecule will not undergo SN2 reaction at all. Why this is so worst situation? Because if you consider this one, so if I write down the orbitals, so this is our substrate and we have these 2 hydrogens over here, and now we have this crowded neopentyl group. So we have this neopentyl group, all this methyl, this neopentyl group is there, and now there you will have the LUMO of your molecule. So nucleophile has to approach to this LUMO, right? So it has to approach to this LUMO. How it can approach this group, this large group, neopentyl group? It will create a tremendous steric hindrance here, right? So it cannot approach here, and that's why you will see that it is very poor at giving the SN2 reaction. Similarly, if you consider the situation of it for a SN1 reaction, how it will look like? So if you now consider it for SN1 reaction, so again you will create carbocation like this. So this carbocation is not stabilized by anything, it doesn't have hyperconjugation, it has only one inductive effect. So again this carbocation is not stable, so that's why it will not give SN1 also. So the substrate, this neopentyl substrate, is both bad for SN1 and SN2, and here the electronic effect is very less prominent. The only effect is the steric effect. Because of the steric hindrance, this substrate is bad at SN2 reaction. So this comparison is very important and interesting. Now let us talk about what is the effect of aromatic substitution. If we substitute by aromatic ring, so we will take methyl chloride, then we will take PaCH2Cl, then we will take PH2CHCl, and we will take PH3CCl. So all these four substrates, and we will see how they are responding in SN1 and SN2 reaction. Now first, if we talk about SN2 reaction, how they will respond. So this is very good at SN2 reaction, and this is also very good at SN2 reaction. So you may think that due to the presence of this phenyl ring, the rate may be reduced, but it is not like that. This phenyl is actually helping the SN2 reaction. How it is helping, I will discuss within a moment. But for now, you just know that SN2, these two gives very good SN2 reaction. But as you go to this, so this is 1, this is 2, this is 3, this is 4, and as you go to this 3 and 4, they are bad for SN2 reaction. Why? Because these two groups in this case, and these 3 phenyl groups, they are creating steric hindrance for the attack of nucleophile, and that's why they are bad at SN2 reaction. But if you now consider SN1 reaction, then this will not give SN1 reaction, but as you go from left to right, the rate of SN1 reaction will increase, because as you go from left to right, you are introducing one by one phenyl group, and whatever carbocation you are getting. So in the first case, in this case PaCH2Cl, you will get the carbocation PaCH2 plus, and this carbocation you will see this is stabilized through resonance. So this is your vacant p orbital, and your benzene ring has the p orbital, so there will be resonance. By this resonance it will be stabilized, and in this PH2C plus, in this case you have resonance from 2 phenyl, and the other case, in the other case you have resonance from all these 3 phenyl. So this carbocation is very much stable. So for the SN2 reaction, this will show the highest rate, then this, and then this. Okay, this is for SN1 reaction, for the SN1 reaction, as the carbocation is stabilized. Now let us talk about why this PaCH2Cl it shows higher rate for SN2 reaction. Before that, one thing I should make clear is that depending on the solvent, if you do the reaction in water like solvent, it will give SN1 reaction, whereas if you do the same reaction in solvent like DNSO, it will give SN2 reaction. So this is again ambiguous substrate. It can give either SN1 or SN2 depending on whatever solvent you choose, and also the nucleophilicity matters. If you use strong nucleophile, it will give SN2. If you use weak nucleophile, it will give SN1 reaction. But the question is why it is showing faster rate in SN1 reaction. Before discussing that, another substrate you have to consider, that is allylic substrate. Let's say allylic bromide. It again shows very high rate in both SN2 and SN1 reaction. In case of SN1 reaction, you can see this is allyl cation, and I discussed in my videos of the delocalization and energy lowering conjugation that allyl cation is very much stable due to this conjugation. So you have two resonating structures like this, and that's why you have a resonance hybrid. So this positive charge is actually delocalized here, and that's why it is a very stable carbocation. So it will give higher rate of SN1 reaction. So we know that why these substrates, this allyl, this benzoylic substrate, they give higher rate for SN1 reaction. Now the question is why they give high rate for SN2 reaction. So in case of SN2 reaction, you have to again look into the orbital interaction. So you can see this particular substrate, if we consider, so it has p orbital over here, and you have this bromine, over here. So this bromine has the LUMO like this. So it has the LUMO like this. Now this LUMO, that is the CBr sigma star, it can interact with the pi star. It has one pi star like this. This carbonyl group will have a pi star, and this has this sigma star like this. So this sigma star and this pi star, they can interact. If you draw the interaction diagram, how they will look like. So this is, let's say, the energy of pi star, and let's say this is the energy of sigma star. Now if they interact, you will have two energy levels. This is the new pi star plus sigma star, and this is the pi star minus sigma star. Okay, so and both are unfilled. You will see pi is also unfilled, and there is vacant, and sigma star is also vacant. So this is now our new LUMO. So previously we had LUMO at somewhere here. So previously this was our LUMO, but this is our new LUMO. This is our new LUMO, and you can see our new LUMO is lower in energy, and we know that from our previous study that if we can lower down the energy of the LUMO, it will be closer to the energy of the HOMO, and that's why nucleophile can easily do the reaction. So that means this conjugation between this pi star and the sigma star actually lowered down the energy of the LUMO, and that facilitates the reaction. Similarly, if we look at the transition state for this SN2 reaction, so this is how the ground state is actually raised in energy. So in this case what you are doing, so this is the energy profile diagram for your SN2 reaction. So this is your ground state energy. So by this energy rising conjugation, this is actually the energy rising conjugation, and actually what you are doing, you are this is energy lowering conjugation, forgive me for that. This is the energy lowering conjugation, you are lowering the energy of the LUMO. So that means now your nucleophile can easily attack to your starting material. Similarly, how you can lower down the energy of transition state. So in the transition state we already told that. So this is how the transition state of your so this is your leaving group, and this is your nucleophile. So this is how the transition state of SN2 look like. Now let's say you have one set of pi orbital over here. So let's say you have one set of pi orbital over here. So you can see with this p orbital which is developed in the transition state, that can now overlap with the pi orbital which is adjacent of the allyl system or phenyl system, benzyl system, in both system. So through this delocalization, the energy of the transition state is lowered down, and that's why we lower down the activation energy, and this will facilitate the reaction. So that's why this benzylic, PHCH2X or allylic, these substrates are very good at SN2 reaction due to this conjugation in the transition state. But if you look into the other similar looking substrate, that is, let's say, the normal aryl halide or vinyl halide like this, they are very bad at both SN2 and SN1 reaction. They are very bad at these two reactions. Okay, why they are bad? So in case of SN1 reaction, you can see, so in this case this X atom generally has lone pair, so there is a conjugation between these two. So you have a partial double bond character here, and here also you have partial double bond character through this conjugation. So that means inherently these bonds are stronger compared to the other case, that is the benzylic case, where you have no such conjugation. So inherently these bonds are stronger, so to break them you need more energy. So that's why they give slower reaction both in case of SN1 and SN2. Now in case of SN1, if you form a carbocation like this, so it doesn't have any kind of stability. Similarly, if you form carbocation here, it will not have any stability, and in fact it is destabilized because this center is sp2 hybridized, and there is no this is in sp2 low. In previous case we had, so normally with carbocation we have in the p orbital, the positive charge is on the p orbital, and in this case you have the positive charge on the sp2 lobe. This is sp2 lobe which has high s character, and that means the carbocation is destabilized. In this case also it is in the sp2 lobe, so that's why it is bad in SN1 reaction. In case of SN2 reaction, so in case of benzene ring, you will see that it has a pi electron cloud above and below the ring. So that means approach of any nucleophile from either above or below is difficult, so nucleophile cannot approach. Similarly here also we consider you have two pi electron cloud above and below, so that means the approach of any nucleophile on this substrate is difficult, because negative charge, both negative charge of pi electron cloud and negative charge of nucleophile, they will repel each other and nucleophile cannot approach. So that's why this vinyl and phenyl substrate both are bad at both SN1 and SN2 reactions. Now let us talk about another kind of substrate, and that is bridging substrate. So we have seen that this tertiary butyl substrate, they are very good at SN1 reaction. Now we will take some other substrate which are tertiary like this. So you will here. it will be like this one. So this is another substrate, and this is the other substrate like this. Okay, and if you compare the rate, so if this is the rate 1, if this rate is 1, so let's say this rate is 1, this will be at around 10 to the power 6 minus 6, and this will be 10 to the power minus 14. So these are relative rates. So you can see this reaction will show SN1. So these are all rates of SN1 reaction. So this substrate will show 10 to the power minus 6 times slower reaction than this one, and this will show 10 to the power minus 14 times slower reaction. So why this is the case? Because in the first case, whatever carbocation you will form, that is very much stable due to the planarity. In the planar form, it has full hyperconjugation with the p orbital. But in this case, if you able to form this carbocation, it will be not in the p orbital, but it will be in the sp3 hybrid, and it is not planar. So hyperconjugation is not possible here. And for the other one, the another one, that is this one, you can see this is even more rigid because only one carbon is there. In this case 2 carbons are there, so it is slightly flexible. So carbocation has slight more stability, so the rate is 10 to the power minus 6. But in this case only one carbon is there, and that's why it is very much rigid, and that's why it shows minus 10 to the power minus 14 times slower reaction. So because of the destabilization of the carbocation, this substrate shows very slower rate in SN1 reaction. So only carbocation will form when the carbocation can be planar. In this case planarity cannot be attained, and that's why the carbocation will not form, and it will show very slow rate in SN1 reaction. Another similar kind of example is this one. So you can see, let's say you have this substrate 3 phenyl group, you have bromine over here, and so this will show very high rate of SN1 reaction. So SN1, this is all about SN1 reaction. But another similar looking substrate may be this one. Let's say you have this, and in this case these are aromatic rings. And another aromatic ring is here like this, and here you have the bromine. So if your relative rate of this one is 1, the relative rate for this one will be 10 to the power minus 23. Can you imagine 10 to the power minus 23? So that means it will not undergo the SN1 reaction. Now again, why? Because in this case you can see whatever carbocation will be formed like this, pH. So this is almost planar, and all this phenyl ring, they will have conjugation. The p orbital of the benzene ring will have conjugation with this vacant p orbital. But in this case, this planarity cannot be attained due to the rigidity of the structure. Due to the rigid structure, the planarity cannot be attained, and the carbocation is not stable, and that's why it will not undergo the SN1 reaction. So this is the effect of substrate on the rate of SN1 and SN2 reaction. Now let us talk about the stereochemistry of these two reactions, the SN1 and SN2 reaction. So first let us talk about the SN1 reaction, and from the initial discussion of first we will discuss about SN2 reaction. And from the initial discussion of SN2 reaction, you already know that SN2 reaction involves attack of nucleophile from the back side. So if you have some substrate like this where you have 3 different groups, like R1, R2, R3, and if you add nucleophile from the back side, so through the transition state, this is your nucleophile, this is your bromine, this is your R3, this is your R2, and this is your R1. So through the transition state you will get a substrate, you will get a product like this. Here you have nucleophile, here you have R1, here you have R2, here you have R3. So you can see there is an inversion of the configuration. Actually it is like whatever happens when you have umbrella and you go to the wind, so umbrella inverted. So this is also called inverse umbrella motion, or in general it is called inversion. So inversion occurs in case of SN2 reaction because the nucleophile attacks from the back side. Okay, and Now in this case you cannot say experimentally that indeed the inversion occurs. For that we have to compare between two substrates. If the same bromide would generated here, then we could say that the inversion is occurring. So for that we design some special reaction. How we design the reaction? So we take a substrate like this. So let's say we have OH group over here, here we have deuterium, here we have hydrogen, and here we have some R group, right? And now we first treat this molecule with tosyl chloride. Okay, so this OH will be OTS, it will be tosylated, and now we have R, we have deuterium, we have hydrogen over here. So this compound we will treat with, let's say, MeCO2 minus, that is acetate anion. So acetate anion will do SN2 reaction from the back side. So from here it will attack and it will go. So whatever we will get is, we will get OCO-CH3. So this is our nucleophile, and we will get inversion over here. So this, and now we will have hydrogen over here and deuterium over here. So now if you hydrolyze this one, with, let's say, base, but you have to use some condition which does not clip this bond, but hydrolysis will clip this particular bond and you will get alcohol. Okay, so you will get alcohol. Now if you take these two molecules, this molecule 1 and this product 2, and if you measure their optical rotation in a polarimeter, so let's say for this one, for 1 you get minus x degree measurement in the polarimeter, so you will get exactly plus x degree rotation for this one, and this proves that the inversion occurs, because you can see this bond we didn't break in the reaction, we break only this bond. So whatever configuration of this, the same configuration will be for this one, because we are not breaking the bond which is attached to the chiral center. So this particular example proves that indeed in SN2 reaction inversion occurs, and even better proof is there. So for that we use 2-iodooctane. So we just represent it by R group, and we have like here we have this deuterium, and we have this hydrogen like this. This is our substrate, and we have iodine over here, and the same substrate we treat with radioactive I minus, so iodine 128 minus. So this, with this radioactive iodine, or we just represent it by I star. So if we do SN2 reaction with this, so what will happen? It will attack here and inversion will take place. So we will get I, and here we will have R, we will have hydrogen, we will have deuterium. So inversion occurs, it is radioactive iodine. Now if you start the reaction after a certain time, what will happen? So if we start from hundreds of this molecule, so when 50% of this will be converted to this other isomer, that is, it is actually the enantiomer of this one. So when it is converted 50%, you will have a 50-50 mixture of, so let's say, so we just do the nomenclature, RS nomenclature. So let's say this is 1, this is 2, this is 3, this is 4. So that means this is 1, 2, 3, this is anti-clockwise, so this is S, so this will be then R. So then after 50% conversion of the reaction, you will have 50-50 mixture of R and S. So you will have a racemic mixture. So let's say first when you start the reaction, you have a certain rotation in the polarimeter, let's say y degree, but when you do the reaction and the reaction goes 50%, then you will have zero optical rotation, because you now have 50-50 mixture of R and S, and this indeed proves that the reaction involves the inversion. So we prove that SN2 reaction involves inversion of configuration. Now what about the case of SN1? And as you might expect, if you have three different R groups, let's say R1, R2 and R3, and this is your iodide substrate. So let's say it is undergoing SN1 reaction. So you know that, so we have to draw the proper stereochemical representation like this. Yeah. So you will know that in the intermediate it will form a carbocation which is planar and it does not have any chirality. So this is planar and it does not have any chirality. Now you may think that on this planar carbocation, so this is p orbital, and on this planar carbocation nucleophile can attack both from this side and from this side, and this attack you will expect 50-50. so you expect a racemic mixture in this case. But what we actually get is we never get racemic mixture. We get generally we get inverted product as our major product, although in case of SN2 reaction we get complete inversion, but in this case we get the inverted product as our major product. Why this is the case? For that we have to look into the mechanism of SN1 reaction more closely. So if we just represent this by Rx, so what happens in SN1 reaction is, first this forms this R plus X minus, and this is called intimate ion pair. So this is within the solvent cage. Then some solvent molecules comes between these two like this, R plus X minus. This is called solvent separated ion pair. This is called solvent separated ion pair, and finally it goes like R plus X minus, and they are fully separated, they are dissociated. This is called dissociated ion pair. Now nucleophile, whatever present in your reaction medium, it can attack in each of this stage. So if your nucleophile attack on this dissociated ion pair, then you will get complete 50-50 mixture of the two. But if your nucleophile attack on this intimate ion pair, it can attack only from the back side, because in one side you have this X minus, and from that side the nucleophile cannot come. So in this case you will get the inversion, and because of this, you know that you have all these three, this 1, 2 and 3, all these three types of ion are there in your reaction medium. So attack of nucleophile can take place in all of these three. So that means you will get a mixture of all these three outcome, and that's why you never get 50-50 mixture of the two in your SN1 reaction. So you always get the inverted product as your major product. So that means SN2, for SN2 reaction, inversion is a much needed. It is for sure that we need inversion to say that it is SN2 reaction, but for SN1 reaction it is not so straightforward. If we don't get racemic mixture also, then also it can be SN1 reaction. So if in some reaction we get inversion as an outcome, we can say for certainly we can say that it is a SN2 reaction. But similarly, if we get if we don't get racemic mixture, then also it can be SN1 reaction. So inversion is a hard and soul rule for SN2 reaction, but racemization is not a hard and soul rule for SN1 reaction. That's all. So here I will finish this video. In the next part I will discuss about some more stereochemical outcome of SN1 and SN2 reaction, and also the effect of leaving group and nucleophile on the rate of SN1 and SN2 reaction. Thank you for watching. If you are new in this channel, subscribe this channel and have a good day.